Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm going to give a few minutes for some people to get on live. We moved the time tonight. We also have advertisement up there that is actually not the live stream. And so I'm just going to kind of hang out here right now. I'm going to go over to our channel on YouTube and see if I can scratch that one out. So let's see what's going on here. Yes, I'm going to go over here, make sure that my live stream is up. And it is. So I'm going to go in here and I am going to cancel the other live stream. Okay. And now I'm the only one on here. Yeah, okay, this is good. This is good. This is good. Okay. Well, what's up? Hope you guys are doing well whenever you get on. And for those coming in, I want to jump right to what I want to get into tonight. And we are continuing kind of in this vein of, there's the local with what's going on with the cases, with what's happening with ARC, with what's happening at Celebration. And then there's kind of the macro we've been talking about, and that has to do with the bigger picture of things and all the cyber crime and the surveillance and things like that. And while those two intersect a lot, and once again, we're going to look at an intersection that's going to cause us to look into a lot of the local components tonight. There are two separate things that intersect. And like I've been saying since day one, that I believe that the church, I'm talking about the church in America, has been under threat and really infiltrated by nefarious actors in 2019 and 2020 during COVID. And I believe that there are several leaders in the body of Christ today in America that are compromised and that are cooperating with other bad actors. This isn't new. This has been going on for a long time. I think that Celebration was targeted. There's a lot of reasons I could say why. There's a very practical reason of my encounter with Jesus. I came out against the system, the church growth system that I used to champion. And boy, did the people behind that system come after me to destroy me. However, I don't believe that it was that it's that simple. I believe that there were other things already at play in the body of Christ, in ARC, things like we see in TPUSA, things like that we see in Bethel, things like we've seen in the assemblies of God, the church of God, things like we've seen at IHOP. There are all of the liberty. There are all of these, we could say, networks, Christian networks in the nonprofit world, and there are bad actors and political groups and different agendas, and there is money and there is spyware and there's all of these things. And the church has become the perfect breeding ground for a criminal environment. And so what we see today is we see the worst things happening in the church. We see the worst fraud. We see the worst predatory actions. And we see, unless it just gets completely exposed where there's no way out for the people, we see predators promoted in the body of Christ. And so that's what we're dealing with today. We see fraud rewarded. We see predators promoted. The bad actors at Celebration and at ARC. That's what we've seen these last, like really going back 7 years. And so that's kind of the big picture. I always like to remind everyone about that. And I do want to say hello to some of you people coming on. Good to see you guys. Judy, Jean, Annika, and we moved the time tonight. So I want to dive in. I want to get going. because this is some really, oh man, some really disturbing stuff again, but some things that I think kind of give light to some things. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is I want to go back to an email, and we're going to need to go over all of these emails again at some point in the near future. And that's the emails from these ARC attorneys as they're illegally seizing the institution of Celebration Church. So I want to put this up here, and we're going to go back. Let me try to go back to the beginning here. And so this was this email from Kristen R. And Kristen R. I never met her before. Her or Lee Wedekin had no idea who they are. They're ARC attorneys. So they were sit in by ARC attorneys. That's clear. They admitted to that in their report. And so all of a sudden, these attorneys are coming in, and they're making all these threats. And the basis, or what I want to draw your attention to in one of these threats here, is this is threats that they're saying I'm making. So let's just kind of look at this here. So here's Kristen. She's writing to my attorney, Jason. She says that their law firm's been retained by Celebration Church, whoever that is. You know, I had plenary authority. I thought I was in charge of Celebration Church. So evidently there's this shadow celebration controlled by other people that have retained these ARC attorneys. And she goes on and talks about, you know, that my attorney's email fails to take into consideration the very real, tangible, and legitimate concerns that the church has as a whole with regard to past undertakings and financial entanglements of Stovall Weems. One man does not control the current and future of the church. And I just want to pause right here. I know we went over this last week, but this is really important. Anytime you see, especially an attorney, in my opinion, instead of going by the law or the bylaws, this attorney is just, hey, there's some people who have some concerns, so we're going to hijack, change the bylaws, threaten him with arrest if he trespasses. This is the kind of stuff that causes people, such as myself, to really lose faith in the justice system, or really lose a lot of faith that lose faith that people in the legal profession, they just shouldn't engage in things like this. You know, I understand these ARC attorneys are the ARC attorneys, and I don't think they would have that job unless they were willing to engage in all types of, in my opinion, or obvious, I don't even think it's opinion, illegal activity. And so she begins to say these things that really have nothing to do with the bylaws, that really have nothing to do with, yeah, I agree. One man shouldn't control. That's why we have bylaws. That's why we go by the bylaws when there's an investigation and so forth. But she's trying to use this emotional language to say, we're just going to take the church and do what we want because that's just what we're going to do. And I want to bring your attention back down to, let me just kind of go to this right here. Yeah. So this one, if you guys can see that, it says, advise Stovall Weems that he's not to communicate directly with any current church leadership or employees while our investigation is ongoing, not appear at or otherwise visit any of the church locations for services tomorrow, and until this investigation is concluded. Any interference with the investigation, they just love that word, the investigation, which there was never an investigation because they would never question me, with the investigation. And look at this, y'all. I want to highlight this again. And continued string of written and verbal threats. will be met with strong action and will be interpreted as a conscious and concerted effort to hinder and interfere with the ongoing operations of the church. I had plenary authority. Is it? Oh my gosh. Of the church and efforts to secure its financial future in ministry. Yeah, those guys are securing the finances all right in their big embezzlement package. And I think my opinion is they use the embezzled money to pay these attorneys. So, but this is what I want to bring your attention to, and this is going to kind of cause a deep dive tonight into a related issue, but not exactly this, okay? She says, look, any interference with and continued string of written and verbal threats. She's accusing me of that. Now, we went over lots of these emails. We'll go over more of them. And, as we get into a lot more of this over the next few weeks, this is really important because I'm just wondering, is this, if you're watching an arc, if you know someone or if you yourself, if ARC ever tried to do corporate theft or seize a church or ministry or whatever, I'm just wondering if fabricated emails. I talked to a young lady that's in a lawsuit with ARC. Lots of very, very different, but a lot of what I would call the psyops tactics and the intimidation patterns that you see in our case. And one of those is she was telling me, and I have no reason not to believe her, about how she feels like she's been hacked and that her emails, she has some emails that have been manipulated. I think she said were deleted, altered, manipulated. And so if they are doing that and they can, if they do that, well then, if they can manipulate your emails, if they can delete your emails, then they can fabricate emails. And you guys will remember, not going to go back there because we're going to get into all those again. You remember how one of their attorneys, Lee Wedekind, wrote Carrie and said, yeah, your messages might be being altered right now. The internet and the messages that I guess you have on the church server, your messages could be being altered right now. Just a really very unprofessional, to say the least. I'll refrain from what could be the worst from the word, but I would say it's a very dark and disturbing thing when some of your first communication to people that don't know what's going on is that their emails might be getting altered, their messages. To me, that's a threat. It's a total threat. Okay, so look at this. So what I want to see here, she says this, and here's where, don't go to the campus or we will call the authorities. When I read this now, I'm just like, God, oh man. But look at this. See this email right here, csw@weemsgroup.org. How Kristen R. in this response got this email, we have no idea. Go and listen to last week's episode. If you weren't here, go and listen to that. But this email, we've never opened it. We heard that our assistant had created the domain weemsgroup.org. We had no idea that it was ever used or anything like that. We certainly hadn't used it. And all of a sudden, it shows up in these emails that that Kristen R is writing to. And so what I'm saying is, in my opinion, there's no way that she has this email unless something on that email was written to her, and she felt like in this letter she needed to include this email address, this domain, weemsgroup.org, in the email response. So this is my theory. What I believe in this scenario is I believe that Tim Timberlake on the ground, because he is the manipulator that would do something like this. Tim, we're gonna take a deeper dive into Tim tonight and to next week, because we just have to at this point, or you're not gonna understand the psychological dynamics at play for how and why people would do this kind of stuff. But it's what I believe is that Tim used this email. Did Chris and Dino and all of them know about it? Were they all in on it? I don't know. Were the attorneys in on it? I don't know. But in our research and in the evidence we have, this very much points to Tim. This email was this domain that we had no idea about. It was kept active until we filed the ARC case in 2023. It was moved around to several places. Like, it was being used, weemsgroup.org, all the way till June 2023. It was being moved around. It was finally moved offshore to a server that I think Cisco designated as a malware server. It was like, real commonplace for cyber criminals and stuff like that. And if you follow, I'm not going to get into the technicalities of this tonight, but if you follow the certificates of that domain, weemsgroup.org, who it was hosted by, and things like that, there is very much a pattern with our legal. There's very much a pattern of Tim Timberlake TV. I'll explain and later on how that gets into it. But what you basically have is you have some people that are using this Weems Group domain. They're also using the Weems Group name. That seems to be a big the Weems Group, the domain, the fabricated emails, and some other things with Weems Group on them. Bank in the bank. It seems like that was kind of what these criminals were manipulating and doing, and how they, whatever they were trying to fabricate evidence just to show internally, externally, I don't know, but we're going to find out. And so I want to look at, that's what I think right there. I think that Tim was using this, and he was doing a lot of really shady, dark, nefarious stuff that pathological people do. And so we're gonna look into that. So we're gonna look into it tonight. So the first thing we have to do is look into Tim Timberlake, which is not my favorite thing to do, because it's very disturbing. And so, but what we're going to do, this is amazing. I didn't get this until a couple of weeks ago. It just kind of blew my mind. We're going to look at this clip of Tim, and we've got to get some context for the type of person that's not just a habitual liar, but a pathological liar, and the type of person who would do, like, fabricate emails, do stuff like that. Send emails from me. I don't know what he was threatening, what the threats were, but I believe somebody knows it. And I believe that if somebody, I would hope at some point, if you do know that your conscience would get to you and you would contact us. Yeah. And you would let us know what you know, because a lot of these things, there's just way too much out there. There's way too much recklessness. You're going to see a lot of recklessness here in this video. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going through these notes right here. I'm going to People are like, look more on the camera. I see the camera. I just got to get my notes organized first. I'm new at this. So we're going to look at this interview with Tim and Lecrae. Okay, this happened in October of 2025. And what you are going to hear Tim say, it's going to astound, I think, some of you. I mean, me, not at all. This is right up his alley. But remember what we have been doing on the show for the last couple of months. We've been going through all through 2021. Tonight, we looked at one of those, emails again in early 2022 when all this is going down and the coup, and we've been over board meeting minutes and all this stuff from the year 2021. Well, Tim in this interview is going to take us back to 2020. And he is going to tell Lecrae, this interview with Lecrae, he is going to tell Lecrae what happened in 2020, right before and starting in 2019, right after COVID. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to try to refrain from commenting on every single false statement or fabrication that he says, because all of it, it's really it's like a it's just a big fabrication. But the fascinating thing about this one that Tim does is Tim contradicts Celebrations and ARC's own narrative. And so he's out there now just kind of contradicting everyone. Obviously, I guess he's trying to make himself look like a hero or something like that. So let's just take a look. So let me go to,
down there in October of 2019. They announced the transition to the church October the 6th.
Hold on. Let me go up here and remove that. Okay, now we're going to add that.
We moved down there.
Okay, let me bring this back.
We moved down there in October of 2019. They announced the transition.
All right, we're going to start over again. You ready?
That to the church. We communicate truth to the church. We moved down there in October of 2019. They announced the transition to the church October the 6th, 2019. We moved down there. COVID hits.
I didn't even think about 2019.
COVID hits.
But you had a piece.
I had a piece January 2020, and it wasn't a transition at all. So
you started over.
After they announce it, COVID hits, the founders, they disappear, bro. And so I'm like, man, that's kind of weird. COVID hits, I'm the one communicating through a camera lens to a community that does not know me and I do not know them.
Wow.
And so I'm navigating this tension of trying to lead a community in a season that no one has ever experienced before to a community that does not know me. So what happens is in that August, we open the church back up to in-person gatherings. And I just have an unsettled feeling in my spirit, like, man, like I've been through some transitions before. This one's different. And so what ended up happening is ended up doing a forensic audit on the church and find out financial misappropriation.
So now you're in a corrupt church.
I'm in a position now.
Yeah.
As a young Black pastor leading behind a middle-aged Caucasian pastor. I have not met the congregation face to face. The congregation has not met me face to face. And now I am communicating there has been financial misappropriation.
Okay. Did everybody hear that? So apparently Tim comes in 2019. By the way, the only transition that was announced was Tim was going to be preaching some and that he was going to be the campus pastor. Tim's transition, he had to prove himself to even be city pastor. Everything was a proven 3-year plan. I'm not going to get into how Carrie and I bolted. That was all part of the plan. Part of the plan was us being out at Honey Lake and going around and seeing the other campuses, going to our international locations and building that founding pastor seat and checking in with Tim. We had a full 3-year plan. I'm not going to speak to that. I'm not going to get into his false reality delusion. He can live there and stay there. But what I do want to address is something that was just shocking, that even Tim would say this. So Tim says, right, so we're coming out of COVID. He hadn't met the congregation. And basically he comes out of this is Tim, okay? He feels something weird. Now I want to remind you, I could show you these, y'all. You know, if y'all want to go into them, I've got them right here. I've got our lawsuits. I've got who was on the board. I've got board meeting minutes. I've got like 20 documents down here that I could show you. If that helps some of you, I've basically been over all these documents, at least the ones here, already in this series. So I really would not want to spend a lot of time going over these, like showing you in 2020, Tim, he was an employee. He was technically a campus pastor. We have his job description as the city pastor. That's what he's moving into at that time, being the city pastor. He was not an officer. He was not a board member. He was not, he just wasn't anything. Yet, lo and behold, we have him here that in August of 2020, everything I've been showing you guys is 2021, 2022. August in 2020, he has to stand up to a congregation that he's never met and announce financial misconduct. And it was because he, as a, I don't know, employee, he wasn't even on senior staff then. He somehow ordered a forensic financial audit and found financial misappropriation and stood up and announced to the congregation in August of 2020, or right after we came back. Now, how many of you were there? This is what I want to bring out about this. And this is just the beginning, okay? This is what I'm talking about when you're dealing with dangerous cultic people, someone who's not just a habitual. There's a difference between a habitual liar and a pathological liar. So when somebody is willing to do stuff like this, they can't control it. Something that's so easily disprovable, something that calls their own attorney and their own church and arc narrative a lie. Like this kind of stuff, the fact that not just Tim, but the fact that there are preachers that do this kind of stuff, and they're literally getting up in pulpits and they're going on Lecrae. And you know, Lecrae, the thing about this thing with Lecrae, and we'll get into it, like this stuff was so verifiable, you know? And so he comes in, I don't know if you heard him, we'll get back into it, but he comes in and he says, oh, so you were in a corrupt church. So now he's brought Lecrae in on the defamation. By the way, this is all new defamation. This is brand new. This is October 2025. This is a whole nother realm of defamation and Lecrae that's not connected to the old. It involves some of the same timelines. So there's a whole new narrative. I've never heard this. I've never heard that Tim somehow is not an officer, not an employee, not on the senior staff. I mean, he is an employee. He's not even on the senior staff. No transition has happened. I've been going over all the 2021 stuff with y'all like that somehow Tim, I guess he stood up secretly on, or Yeah, he's never met the congregation. Lo and behold, first thing he does is he orders a financial forensic audit as an employee, not on the senior team, I guess behind the accountant's back too, and the board's back too, and my back too. And then he stands up and tells the congregation. I mean, poor Tim, what a victim. God, so tough for him. You know, he's got a God. What a great leader he is, able to do that. So this is a new one, right? And part of me, like, we're going to listen to the rest of it. We're going to listen on another 8-10 lies. We're not going to do all of them tonight in the 3 minutes. It's too much to talk about. But what I do want to look at is there something that I think that there is something that Tim is saying in this that reveals more than just, he's a pathological liar and a fraud. And Lecrae, yeah. So that's what they'll say. Well, you know what they'll say? Yeah, forget that Tim lied and fabricated all this stuff and all that. He just wants to sue everybody. He's just suing everybody. Man, stop your lying, fabricating, fraud, fake, gay, whatever else you would just, yeah, you bring these kind of fabrications up on a podcast like Lecrae, you better believe you're getting called out. You just fraud cowards. So look at this. Let's go back and listen to this some more. Oh man, this is tough. It's just tough to listen to. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Come up here.
Oh man.
So it's a bad deal.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure people was happy to take their luggage and leave after that.
Oh man, in droves. So we have to communicate that to the church. We communicate truth to the church, and the founders sue the church and sue me for defamation of character.
Welcome to pastoral leadership, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the call of God.
Jeez.
But I have a call from God. I feel a peace in my spirit. I have clarity from God as to what he wants for his church, what he wants for that community, what he wants for that city. And so we're walking into it. And my mentality about all of it, in the thick of it, and we're still in the thick of it. We're still in the middle of 3 lawsuits.
Goodness gracious.
Because each and every one of them has been thrown out.
Okay, here we go. All right. So they're still in the middle of 3 lawsuits because each and every one has been thrown out. So are they in the middle of 3 lawsuits? Or has each and every one been thrown out? Did you hear what Tim said? That I sued him and the church for defamation. Let me show you something about that. Okay. Here is the defamation lawsuit. Okay. You'll see that. Celebration Church, Kevin, Marcus, Angela, Jacob, and Lee Wedican. You don't see Tim there? Nope. Tim was not sued for defamation. Okay. He wasn't in that lawsuit. Tim was in this lawsuit, as you see him like there. This is for breach of fiduciary duty and conspiracy. Okay. So, number one, Tim, I didn't sue him for defamation. I get to now on this October 25th, but I didn't sue him for defamation. And the second really he's about to add on to this as he goes into, they're in the middle of 3 lawsuits, but all 3 have been thrown out. Well, let me just put this back there. This one, y'all know I'm in court. What I'm trying to say is, of course, No, not all of them. One of them, the defamation one, that was split into two. Both of those went to appeals, and both of those were dismissed. We're going to look at that. But then the one that went to court, you guys know it's in court. So for Tim to say they're in 3 lawsuits, and then all 3 are thrown out. Of course, he's like guys like that do. They contradict themselves, like same sentence. Which one is it, right? So he says this. I sue him for defamation. Not true. They're in the middle of 3 lawsuits. That's not true because all of them have been thrown out. That's not true, like I just showed you guys. But I want to show you before he goes into his next lie. I want to show you this order from Judge Aho. This is Judge Aho's order. And these are what, if you guys, I've tried to do my best explaining ecclesiastical abstention. This is really important to know about ecclesiastical abstention, is that when a court dismisses the lawsuit, the claims, the case, or the case, they're not dismissing it on the validity of the claims, as you see right here. They're dismissing it, I'll read it to you, because this court has determined the ecclesiastical abstention doctrine deprives it of jurisdiction. So this is why these criminals love ecclesiastical abstention. If they can trick the court, and come up with these straw man arguments, then what the court is saying is this: maybe there's defamation, maybe there's not. Maybe there's conspiracy, maybe there's not. Maybe there's breach of fiduciary, maybe there's not. But we believe, because this is some type of religious dispute that might require looking into doctrine, like the doctrine of bank statements. It's so ridiculous. Not going to get into it. We don't have the right as a court. We don't have jurisdiction to look in to see what these claims, if the defamation, the conspiracy, maybe it's there. The defendants, like Tim, in their pleading, accepted it as true. Yeah, we defamed. Yeah, we did conspiracy. That's what you do in ecclesiastical abstention. But the court's saying we don't have a right to look into it. We don't have jurisdiction, because this is like in this religious realm, okay? What is absolutely 100% not true is that the court dismissed any claims, defamation, conspiracy, breach of fiduciary duty, anything like that, dismissed anything because there was no breach of fiduciary duty, or because there was no defamation, because there was no conspiracy. It's just the opposite. That's what we want. We want to go to court so the court can see that. We know what the evidence is going to show. And so what's very, very disingenuous or very misleading for someone to say is that, these cases, because of ecclesiastical abstention, have been thrown out. And what that means is there was no defamation. There was no conspiracy. There was no breach of fiduciary duty. Okay. So very, very important. Now let's see what.
Because there is no defamation of character.
Right.
So in the thick of it,
let me come back up here. Okay, I don't know what happened. Let me just go to what happened here.
This is what you call this to do.
Yeah.
Is someone else up in here? I'm confused of this. Okay, I need to
we believe you would model if you were here.
If
and that clearly has attracted.
Just let me do this so we can get it up there. Do that.
People on people on people.
Okay. We're wait. Okay, so listen to this again.
I'm sure people was happy to take their luggage and leave after that.
Oh man, in droves. So we have to communicate that to the church. We communicate truth to the church, and the founders sue the church and sue me for defamation of character.
I sued Tim for defamation of character. You guys saw that. Just complete lie. But here's why he's saying this. Look what he's setting this up with.
Welcome to pastoral leadership, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the call of God.
Jeez, Weems.
But I have a call from God. I feel a peace in my spirit. I have clarity from God as to what he wants for his church, what he wants for that community.
Lots of racketeering, lots of crime. Yes, Tim has a vision.
What he wants for that city. And so we're walking into it. And my mentality about all of it, in the thick of it. And we're still in the thick of it. We're still in the middle of 3 lawsuits.
Goodness gracious.
Because each and every one of them has been thrown out. Because there is no defamation of character.
Right.
Did you hear that? That's why he's setting that up. He's setting it up. I sued him for defamation, not true, showed you that. And now they're in the middle of 3 lawsuits, but they're not in the middle because they've been thrown out. Why have they been thrown out? Because there was no defamation of character. What Tim Timberlake said right there is it's bad. It's really, really bad. And so this is all new. This is new fabrications. This is new lies. He ought to know he's not going to be able to say, oh, I didn't understand the law. He's not going to be able to do that. He was a defendant. He knew what he pleaded. Lecrae's not going to be able to get out of it. This stuff is well known. You can go to any of the lawsuits. It's been in it's been in all the media and all this stuff. But to say that these cases, at least a couple of them were dismissed because there was no defamation, is the exact opposite of what an ecclesiastical abstention dismissal means. It means there was no jurisdiction to look into it and rule if there was defamation or not. And so Tim once again sets that up to try to make himself look like the hero. So all of a sudden, this is a whole 2020, he came in, he had a weird feeling in his spirit in August of 2020 when I'm in all these meetings, when I'm preaching, when I'm doing all this stuff, and somehow he ordered a forensic audit. Somehow he, as a non-officer, non-board member, non-senior team person, city pastor, employee, somehow he ordered a forensic audit and found financial misappropriation. And before he even met the congregation, he had to get up there and announce it to the congregation right after COVID in August 2020. But I guess somehow everybody forgot about it, and I kept leading and doing all these things we've been going over in 2021. So now, what a hero Tim is. Poor Tim, the victim, has been sued all of these things, and this is I want you to look really good, because this is who Tim is. And what happens with these pathological liars is it's like this. He'll double down on this. I guarantee you. He'll go and say, all the staff that were, if any were there at that time, they're all going to remember that this is a total lie. He'll go and double, oh no, you don't remember. And, no, I did announce it to the congregation, and somehow that message, we deleted it. Yeah, because we didn't want other people to hear. Like he'll just like all these kind of people do. They'll just go double down on it, gaslight, and do what they've always done. But we'll see what Lecrae does. Now watch this. Watch the end of this.
So in the thick of it, my wife's mentality was, okay, God, if we're going to laugh about it later, we're going to laugh about it now. We have complete trust that this is what you called us to do.
Yeah.
We have complete trust that this is what you desire for us to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to model what we believe you would model if you were here.
And that clearly has attracted people on people on people.
By the grace of God.
Your growth quickly is crazy.
Yeah. So over the last 2.5 years, we've seen 2,600% growth.
That's crazy.
Yeah, in the church.
You had a piece.
Yeah, it's humbling.
It's so humbling. It's just really humbling that 2,600% growth, right? So 2,600% growth, you guys. So if there was, let's go conservative, there's like 10,000 when I pastor, let's say there were 5,000 there. 2,600% growth is 5,000. That'd be like 13 million people. 13 million people. And this is what I'm talking about when guys like Lecrae, I don't really know Lecrae. I definitely think less of him now for not checking any of this stuff out. But when you can't help somebody when they say that, you can't, if you had 2,000 people, right, that 2,600%, and you're like 3 million in your church, right? Like the largest church in the U.S. is 70,000 or whatever like that. But these are the kind of things that people have to at least call out in some way. Like, oh, well, you don't mean 2,600, right? Like maybe you mean 200, right? You've doubled, something like that. 2,600%, 2,600%. So in 2.5 years, Celebration has grown to 13 million people. Man, thank God for the leadership of Tim Timberlake. Yeah, August, he didn't know anybody. He had to stand up and tell the church in August of 2020 that he had ordered a forensic audit, as an employee, non-senior team member of the church, and that he had found financial improprieties, financial misconduct. Somehow that wasn't told to me, or and I kept continuing to minister, and then he took the reins, right, in fall of 2020. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what all the other staff were doing. I don't know what all those board meetings were going on that I showed you guys. I don't know what was happening in January 2020. I don't know what the Celebration and ARC attorneys and all of their narratives and their filings and all that stuff, they got it wrong too. Evidently, Tim's the hero. And poor Tim now, he's been sued for defamation, even though he wasn't. The lawsuits have all been thrown out, even though they're not. They were thrown out because there wasn't a defamation of character, even though they're that's not true. But praise God, humbling, church has grown to 13 million people. Tremendous theater there. That was something. However, all right. So I'm just letting y'all know. Watch this. I'm going to put some of this. Let me remove this. That was something. We got more from there coming, but okay. I'm just going to show y'all this. There's the other case. We went over that. Yeah, look, here's some of these board meeting minutes. I won't do that because Tim, I ordered a forensic audit in September that they never did. The fact that Tim says he could order a forensic, oh my gosh, this is great. Yeah, there's, what was that? Yeah, that was another one. Oh, here's all the, just in case if you want to go and see who is the officers and board members back in 2020 and, even 2019, even, 2021, if you wanted to go see that, there's no Tim there, even though he was ruling the church and ordering audits and announcing to the congregation. Here's our bylaws, in case you ever wanted to. This is just a clip from Article 7 of plenary authority, over I'm the chairman, founder, president, CEO, all that kind of stuff. What is this? Oh, there's habitual versus pathological liar. That I was studying this week because I'm just like, man, this is something, because this is this is like self-sabotaging at another level. And now he's going to bring Lecrae in, and now there's this whole thing of like, wow, 2025, this is all new stuff. Now watch this. It's not connected to any of the other stuff, right? And Lecrae, I don't know what he has. He has like 1 point something million followers on there. He put that out. He called the church corrupt under my leadership because he went along with everything that Tim said. So once again, you know, somehow I'll be the bad guy for not allowing lies and defamation and witchcraft and evil to just go unchecked in God's church. But I'm telling you, I'm done with these liars, especially these pathological liars. I think they're dangerous. I think they need to be nowhere near people or pulpit. They're very cultic, and we've got a lot to look into with him. You know, there's just a lot of things out there that I would say that are disturbing. You know, I would say that are very disturbing. And one of the things we're going to look at, I'm going to show this in just a second, but where's this? Well, I don't know if I can do that. But where's that? Yeah, check this out. Remember that? This was part of Tim's photo shoot when he came out with that book. You know, he went dark for about 3 weeks after he did get named in the fiduciary duty conspiracy lawsuit, not the defamation. He came out. He had a big transformation. He had mastered overcoming. He was the art. It was that book he wrote, The Art of Racketeering. I mean, The Art of Overcoming, where it talks about, I don't know, he's transcended suffering or something like that. Wait till we look at some of these things that Tim has been doing in plain sight and the people that he's been doing them with. It's dark, it's weird, and it's cultic, and it gives me a lot of questions that I can't answer right now about Hodges. Dino somewhat, but especially Hodges. Now let's look at this. Here's another thing, because I'm not done with this entirely on Tim. Here's another clip that we found. Now listen to this answer. So the context here is this guy saying, "Hey, you're coming in." This is, you know, after they had me contained and were trying to destroy me. And so the guy's saying, "Hey, you're coming into, you know, Celebration Church." It was a, you know, large church and all this kind of stuff. And he's asking him, you know, what's the first thing that you would tell somebody needs to, like the first thing when you go into a situation like this at Celebration? Let's take a look. Take a look at this. But by the way, I'm just telling y'all, you know, if these pictures like I'm showing here of Tim, these are on the internet. These are on his social media. They're on other people's social media. And there's a lot more disturbing pictures than things like that. If you understand, you know, the mirrors, smoking mirrors, if you understand all the occultic signs, boy, they're all there in your face. And, you know, there's a lot there. There's a lot in a lot of pictures with a lot of Freemasonry, occultic symbolism that cannot be an accident, in my opinion. Okay, so let's look at this. Where is...
leaders should do when they step into a new assignment? Then what's the number one thing a new leader should do when they step into a new assignment? Then that kind of like first, third.
I'm going to have to remove it because I can't. I don't know where the volume is.
Kind of number one thing they should be tackling.
Discover who.
Whoever has control
What's
of my
the
volume,
number one
can you give it back? I'm gonna remove it. Put it over here.
Number one thing a new leader should do when they step into a new assignment, then that kind of like first 30 days, what's that kind of number one thing they should be tackling?
Discover who you're supposed to be accountable to.
Yeah, that's
Huge.
good.
Wait, what? The first thing, so when you're hired by someone, when you have a direct report, when you have a boss, whatever you want to call the person, your direct report. So when you go into a church and you've been hired, right? Or you were supposed to have been hired, and you go into a church, your first thing that you need to do is discover who you're supposed to be accountable to. Like, that's not inherent. You're accountable to the person who hired you. But Tim had to figure out, I guess I'm not accountable to Stovall, so who am I accountable to? So this is what I want to say about this. What that tells me, and really, even though Tim fabricated all this stuff about, the audit and all these other lies and things like that, what it tells me is, and what we're going to see in a lot of these decisions, which is why I needed to dive into this today. What it tells me is that Tim, he's either sent, he's like pre-sent by ARC, and there is something there's something about the relationship with Tim and ARC that I can't explain. And what I mean by that is that this stuff just on the surface is just way too risky for Hodges. Hodges is a panicker. He's, he's just a panicker. He's like creepy Chris Hodges, panicker, hide behind people, get people in the middle between him, do stuff in the dark like he did here. But the risk factor with doing everything through Tim is very telling. And I don't understand that part. I don't understand the Timberlake Hodges relationship. And as we get into more of these emails, and as we see these things from Dino, as we see actions like, everyone has a lot to lose here. I'm talking about for getting exposed, I'm talking about these art. There's only one person that doesn't have anything really to lose because he's never built anything, and that's Tim. Yet Tim's desire, Tim's wishes are overriding what, at least in my best get, my knowing how these guys are, it's somehow they can't control him. And so that tells me there's a dynamic of relationship there that I don't quite understand. It could be blackmail, it could be a lot of things. Like I'm saying, someone's behind ARC. I do. I believe that there's an Epstein connection. I believe that I already have enough data points to connect it. I just don't have the whole thing. When I say an Epstein connection, I'm not talking about Epstein going to ARC conferences. I'm talking about the people. There's the political world, there's Hollywood, there's the church world, right? They're all operating on these corrupt, predatory levels. They're all operating on the same playbook. And I believe that there are plenty of connections to show that there were people from the political and even celebrity world that crossed over into the religious world, especially on the political side, especially with the NA, especially things like that. And so when I say, I'm just talking about people blackmailed, people looking the other way, people promoting predators, people knowing horrible stuff is going on right underneath their feet, or at their youth camps, or at their internships, or at their whatever, and they just flow with it because that's who they are. So anyway, all right, that's it for tonight. This is great. It's 8 o'clock. We start at 7 o'clock. That's my new goal. Twice a week, do them an hour. And thanks for coming out tonight. I've been extremely busy. I got a lot going on. And I want to thank you for your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And as I said, I'm starting a Patreon channel. And I hope that you guys will be a part, and I hope that, we need to believe God for support so that I can continue to stand and, fund the litigation and the forensics and get to the criminal. That's what's really going to get these guys, are criminal prosecutions, not just the civil. So. All right. I'm taking comments. I'm taking questions. Yeah, we'll keep it open for a few minutes. And well, hello. Bread and Co. Bakehouse. Oh, your bakery or bakehouse? Hello, we never met, but I used to be a resident at Tabitha's house at Celebration Church. How long ago did you leave, if you don't mind me asking? So we were forced out in the spring of 2022. I'm at Tabitha's house. I'm so sorry. I'm not. Was Tabitha's house a ministry that we supported? I'm assuming it was. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to remember what the Tabitha's house was, but we officially resigned in April of 2022 when it became, untenable. They were just the longer we stayed under their unbiblical abuse, the worse it was going to be for us and for the church. The best thing we could do was get out of there for the sake of our families. And yeah, so that was that. Thank you. That was a good question. And one of the questions that people, well, I got them last week. I wasn't able to answer all of them. Was when are we going to get into a lot of the cyber crimes? And what I would say about the cyber crimes is that's the one thing. It's the most important thing that we have, and so there's some things I can show. There's some things that I need to gain an understanding of, number one, from our attorney, but number two, what is it? I need to hear from the authorities what matters and what doesn't, because there is a component that needs to be shared for national security. So that's what I'm waiting on there. Yes, remember to like and subscribe. All right, you guys. If Tim crossed the line and got all it's scary. Like when you see, when people can lie, like I'll say this: if you look at the difference between habitual liars and a pathological liar, a dangerous pathological liar, a pathological liar is like they can't help it, number one, and then they're gonna do it in the face of like what Tim's trying to do is he's trying to rewrite his history. So that's pathological. So even in the face of contradicting the church attorneys, ARC attorney, like of all the narratives out there, including his own pleadings in court, he's willing to come out and fabricate this in, I think this was October 2025, which is like a whole new history rewrite. And I think people like that. Like they know it's easily disprovable. They know all that, but it doesn't, in their delusion, in their false reality, it doesn't register like a normal human. They just kind of think, well, I'll just start saying that enough, and whatever they'll do, they'll lash out at me. Not on substance, they'll say, oh, he just wants to sue people, or whatever like that. They'll focus on the things that aren't really the substance of what we're talking about, But the fact that he's willing to do that, and these guys are willing to do that, and what's concerning to me. So here's a good test. All right. This is a good test for me. The good test for me is, and I was talking a little bit about this when I think about Hodges Church. If people see this or whatever like that were there, like somebody that know, then they're going to absolutely know, okay, wow, Tim is just lying here. If they just, once again, I guess he had his reasons to lie. Like this is where you see the cult, the brainwashing come into effect, that people like, okay, they're at Celebration, they're following Tim, they see this, they happen to be around at that time, they know that Tim is lying. What are they going to do? If it just fake, that's where it gets scary. And so that's why I think a lot of these churches like Highlands, I think Hodges has them to the point, I don't think anything could like really, it would have to be real bad for them to actually, like, for Hodges to be set down. It would, I don't know. I don't know if past affairs, pathological lying like Tim and stuff, definitely not. I don't know. I just don't know. I think the brainwashing and the cultic behavior is at a premium, and I think they've found a way to do reputational laundering, and just like politicians have done now, they just get it to a point where people are like, well, that's just kind of how it is. Clue me in on how Tim came to Celebration. I would say that I met Tim in art circles. I liked him. Very charming. I didn't like him because he was charming, but what we needed at Celebration was we needed someone who could preach. While I was moving into this founder's role and was going to be out with all of our international campuses and doing these missional projects and things like that. And so that's what we had missed. We had good city pastors before, but I kind of needed more of a preacher. And Keith Pittman, who's in Orlando now, he would have been perfect, but we had a thing with our pastor before that. So Keith was now tied into both Orlando and DC. And so I brought Tim in, meeting him through art circles, thinking that he wasn't a dark, disturbing, pathological liar. And looking back, I should have, it was a big mistake. However, I'll say since after what I did find out was after I hired him, well, somehow he was already being paid by Art. Dino was paying him. And then I find out that Dino and Tim talk like every day. And so it, how I look at it now is like, I think, okay, Tim was sent in. That's how I look at it now, Would it be possible to subpoena emails during discovery if evidence suggested there was a coordinated effort to take over the church? Well, so here is the problem with that. The problem with that on the case that's in court, that's the part that they ruled ecclesiastical, or the part of the conspiracy. So, of course, in any normal setting, we could get all that. We could subpoena all the emails. That's what we wanted, like normal discovery. All this can be decided by neutral principles of law. These guys are criminals. They are absolute criminals. They are law breakers. They are lawless men. And so, of course, but part of it has been ruled ecclesiastical. And so where our focus is now is, okay, this stuff that Tim, this is new defamation. All right. So this is new stuff. So there's hope there. But the other thing is the cybercrime. So this is what media is whack. Media is whack. This is kind of what I'm trying to, there's the local, and then I'll back out. There's all this cybercrime. There's all this other stuff going on. There's Carrie now being surveilled for 7 years, right? There's this bigger thing. So the thing is, the parts that are in court, the art part and the part with celebration, that, if I could say it this way, that's not the real case. Like, the case is this much larger. If it was done correctly, there would be a criminal and civil RICO, and all these players would be in there. And so, since our attorneys never followed through with that, and then now here where we are, you got these kind of pieces and patches, but the things that are in court, there's such a narrow slot of time. Like, what's in court is I don't know, that kind of half of 2021 and half of 2022. This is like a 7-year thing. So it's, and then the statutes of limitations, we find stuff every week. Every week there's new stuff. So just add another 4-7 years. What's the statute of limitations now? I don't know, like 20, 30, whatever. So to answer your question, absolutely, we should be able to get every single email, every single piece of evidence that we want, but they plead ecclesiastical abstention. They fight you on everything. They are terrified of any evidence. They're terrified of every deposition. They do exactly what the Bible says. It's the opposite. They're spending millions and millions of dollars not to have their emails discovered. They're spending millions and millions of dollars not to just give the word of their testimony. These people are supposed to be Christians. They're not. They're just, it's just in my opinion, it's just one of the many crime syndicates, religious crime syndicates. The best way to support us, I mean, if you're talking financially, the best way is to give. You can put just for forensics, or you can put just for legal, or anything like that. Also, supporting the channel. All of our social media channels, they've all been, botted, shadow banned, all of that. So supporting our channels as we get going, and giving. I think I have there's a QR code with the duck on the screen there. And so I hope that we can keep going. And I thank God for all the people that have stood by us this far. But as we get into this stuff and you see all this stuff, it's mind blowing. It's just absolutely mind blowing. What happens every week? I want to get to the thing where I can do like a lot. Hey, look what happened this week, but I've got to close. I've got to close this thing, some of these things, with a couple of these authority, I'll call them authority institutions above JSO. Thank God that I need to make sure I'm doing the right thing with our evidence. Thank you, Annika. Look, we love you guys, and thank you very much. I'm going to close us out in prayer and get ready. Be back Tuesday. It's going to be even more crazy. And thanks so much for your support. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, I just thank you for your people. Lord, help us. Lord, we ask for grace. Lord, help us to stand for truth, to love righteousness, to love truth, Lord. It's the foundation of your throne, God. And we just give you all the thanks for our time together tonight. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen. Amen. Okay, God bless you guys. And I'll see you again soon.